The United States has never been a fan of the International Criminal Court, and the ICC is under a lot of criticism right now and pressure. The US has sanctioned its judges, but now it wants to completely wipe out this court that rules on important things like genocide. The Trump administration wants it dismantled, brick by brick if necessary, according to Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Halfway across the world, there's an institution that calls itself the International Criminal Court. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. But chances are you don't know the names of its judges, of its prosecutors, or its president. And you shouldn't have to. But as we speak, the ICC and its friends are waging a war against our country, not with bullets or missiles, but with statutes and compacts and the force of so-called international law.
Well, here's someone who could name all of its judges. Alex Whiting, he joins me from Harvard Law School. He actually worked at the ICC, so he can give us first-hand knowledge of the court's workings, failings and successes. But first of all, what's this war that Rubio is referring to?
Well, thank you for having me. And the war that he's talking about is really invented and is a fabrication and a demonization of the court. The court has been in existence since 2002. So for 24 years, it has not once sought to prosecute an American. It hasn't even come close to that. And currently, there's no indication that there are any investigations of Americans or attempts to prosecute Americans. There's no war by the court against the United States.
And why does Rubio call it so-called international law? I mean, is there such a thing as international law and so-called international law?
Well, no, there is international law, but this administration, from the president on down, has no kind of respect or regard for international law. The president famously said he doesn't really believe in international law. Marco Rubio has fallen into line here, calling it so-called international law. International law is an important is real law that exists that allows the world to function. The United States often benefits from, as do all countries, from international law to regulate dealings between nations and to resolve problems and address global world issues. So the attack on the International Criminal Court is in keeping with this administration's complete disregard for international law.
And to take this a step further, in the Wall Street Journal, Rubio wrote, the ICC is backed and run by a powerful network of leftist non-government organizations, smug globalists and hostile third world governments united by their enmity towards the US. I find this whole framing really interesting. The global left is out to get the right and they're the enemy and they're attacking us. What do you think of the framing?
I think it's fantastical, and I feel like he's trying to create a world of boogeymen and monsters and so forth. But it has nothing to do with reality. The court is not controlled by external forces. It has no political agenda. I worked at the court for several years. I know, as you mentioned, I know the judges there, the prosecutors. They're all serious, professional lawyers who are committed to international law and committed to achieving accountability for serious international crimes like genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes. The United States has, throughout history, from Nuremberg through the ad hoc tribunals, through the creation of the International Criminal Court, has been committed to this mission of accountability for these grave international crimes. And in fact, the irony is that in its 24 years of existence, the United States has, of the International Criminal Court's existence, the United States has often turned to the court to seek accountability for crimes in Darfur, in Libya, most recently in Ukraine. And that was both Democratic administrations and Republican administrations. The International Criminal Court has been important for the United States. And so for now, the exaggeration is kind of a giveaway because it is so that the picture that he paints is so exaggerated that you can feel that there's really nothing there.
You say the ICC has no political agenda, but it does need to be politically selective. It can't just take on all cases, can it?
That's right. It does have to be selective because it has limited powers and limited resources. I wouldn't say it's politically selective. It's not choosing to prosecute, people, the countries or citizens it doesn't like and protecting those it likes. It chooses its cases strategically, chooses the most grave, tries to go after the most grave crimes, also tends to go towards cases that it's going to be able to prosecute, where it can get access to the evidence and it can succeed in its cases. It hasn't always succeeded. You mentioned that there's been criticism of the court, and some of that criticism is well justified, but it's not political in the choices it makes. It's you could say strategic.
Why so many African nations and African cases then? Some people say it's a neo-colonial tool that's used disproportionately against African nations.
Yes, this has been a criticism of the court, especially in the early years, because as you say, many of the cases focused on Africa. That was largely because most of those cases were referred to the court by the countries in Africa that were involved, and the court, and there were serious crimes being committed in Uganda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Mali, Kenya, elsewhere, and so the court gravitated towards those countries. This was not because of a neo-colonial agenda. This was out of a concern for victims in those countries who were being victimized by these grave crimes. And the court has now, it has brought cases in other parts of the world, currently has a case against Rodrigo Duterte, the former president of the Philippines. It has, of course, brought arrest warrants in Ukraine and also in the Palestine case. So that was an early criticism. I don't think it was justified, and it's been overtaken now by events.
Another criticism is that the court lacks universal jurisdiction. I mean, how's it meant to help victims in non-member states like Syria, for example, or North Korea?
Yeah, well, that's a fair criticism of the court. There are 125 states that are members of the court, but that leaves out a number of some big countries and some important countries and some countries where crimes are being committed. When the court was created, universal jurisdiction was debated and considered, but the states chose to limit the jurisdiction to crimes committed on the territory or by a national of a state party. I think that if there were universal jurisdiction right now, actually, there would be even more criticism of the court because there would be people criticizing the court for overreaching. The court is often in a position where no matter what it does, it makes somebody unhappy and somebody will criticize it. But its mission, it has a difficult mission. It has inherited this mission from the prior international criminal courts. It is now the international criminal court for the world. And it just tries to do its mission and tries to succeed at its mission, which is not easy.
Well, it doesn't sound easy. I mean, it relies entirely on member states to execute arrest warrants and gather evidence. And I'm sure the US wouldn't be all that cooperative when it came to, say, Trump's crackdown on drug smugglers and targeting boats in international waters.
That's correct. The International Criminal Court does not have a police force. It relies entirely on cooperation from states, from international organizations, from civil society. And that is a challenge when it seeks to investigate a case in a country that is not cooperating with the court. And certainly in a country like the United States, that is not a member state. But this kind of ties back to your first questions, because This is why the United States is not a state party. It is not one of the 125 states parties. It has never been a party to the International Criminal Court. It would be extremely difficult and challenging for the court to investigate crimes, alleged crimes, committed by U.S. citizens because of the lack of cooperation. It's not impossible. It's not impossible, but it would be challenging. And the notion that the court is at war with the United States and that is targeting the United States, that just couldn't be further from the truth.
What about the US Constitution, though, guaranteeing Americans specific rights that don't exist in the ICC framework?
Yes, this has been one of the reasons that the United States has not joined the court, among many others. And to be fair, there are good and bad reasons why the United States hasn't joined the court. But for many years before the Trump administration, the U.S. nonetheless managed to kind of achieve an accommodation with the court. Even though it wasn't a member of the court, it found ways to support the court. It found ways to work with the court, to refer cases to the court. And of course, the world counted on the United States not to commit massive, not to itself find itself in the crosshairs of the court because it wouldn't commit massive war crimes or crimes against humanity or genocide. So this accommodation really worked. But now, as part of its war on international law and its disengagement from international institutions, the Trump administration has chosen to target the International Criminal Court and demonize that court as you said, as being controlled by left-wing globalists and targeting the United States.
But what about where this is heading? Because you talk about this pattern of presidents demonizing the court, but then saying, hey, we do actually need them. Rubio now saying if they believe they can deprive us of our sovereignty, we will teach them the full meaning of American resolve. What could that mean? Could that mean military force? Would it deploy troops to the Netherlands?
No, I don't think that will happen. Though there is a statute which has been called the Hague Invasion Act, because it does authorize the president to use all means necessary, which includes military force, if the court ever were to arrest and bring to The Hague a U.S. citizen. But we are so far from that scenario. That is not really what is existing today. That's not what the court is doing. But the United States can do damage to the court. There's no question about it. It has already sanctioned the prosecutor, the deputy prosecutors, and a number of judges. It is threatening to do more. It could sanction the entire court. Rubio has said that he will try to persuade countries to withdraw from the court. He may succeed with a handful of countries that are dependent on the United States that will choose to make that decision. So there's no question that the U.S. will not destroy the court. The court will survive. But it will be damaged by what the U.S. is doing.
Alex, let's just look at the press release from Rubio. It's quite interesting. You mentioned some of the measures that it wants to take. Here, this one here about urging other countries to withdraw from the ICC, to reject the ICC's purported authority to prosecute American officials and servicemen. So, they're really trying to get this diplomatic campaign rolling and get others involved. It also says here that it wants increased scrutiny of nations that refuse to reject the ICC's false authority while relying on US assistance. What would that mean, increased scrutiny of nations? Is it going to start drawing up a list of countries it doesn't like? Is it going to hit them with tariffs?
Well, I mean, all these things are possible. And when the the International Criminal Court started in functioning in 2002, the George W. Bush administration, under the direction of John Bolton, who was at the State Department, threatened to do some of these same things to try to threaten countries that cooperated with the court, with USA. That they were more focused on any risk of prosecution of U.S. service members. The attack by the Trump administration seems to be more general, but it's entirely possible that the government will use threats of tariffs, as you say, or cutting off financial aid or cutting off cooperation if countries don't turn against the court. This will ultimately fail because there, as I said, there are 125 countries that are members of the court. They have, it is part of the fabric of international law. They have a strong commitment to the court. And I don't think that and ultimately, I don't think that it will be worth it to the United States to break down some of its relationships and some of its interactions with allies and for this result. So I don't think that the U.S. will ultimately go as far as they may have threatened. And it's also, I don't think, going to work. But it will damage the court. It will make the work of the court much more difficult. There's no question. It will have consequences.
Is it making the work of the court more difficult right now? I mean, with as far as using US software goes, communicating within the court, or even getting people to work there at the court. I mean, they have sanctions out, travel restrictions. Who would want to work for the court?
Yeah, I think that it is having all of those kind of degrading effects on the court. And it's not at the moment, kind of shutting it down. The court has cases. It's still investigating. It's still functioning. But it does wear on the court for the reasons that you say. And also the other thing that we haven't touched on is that what's missing is U.S. Cooperation and support for these investigations. We've been focusing on kind of the negative actions of the United States, but the U.S. has always been a major player in achieving international accountability, both by the resources it provides, the evidence, the personnel. It has been critical to the success of Nuremberg, the Yugoslavia Tribunal, the Rwanda Tribunal, the Cambodia Tribunal, the Kosovo Tribunal. And so to have the U.S. not participating and supporting this court with resources and evidence, that's also a blow to the court. That also makes it extremely difficult for the court to succeed with its cases.
And what do you make of the timing of this diplomatic campaign?
Well, that's one of the mysteries, and people that I speak to that's one of the first things they bring up is, so why now? Where is this coming from? Because, as I said, there is no. You might understand it if the court had opened up an investigation of U.S. personnel or U.S. Military or something, but nothing like that has occurred, and so I think that this is just something that has been slowly worked on in the State Department, and they decided to launch it now. But it doesn't appear to be tied to any specific investigation or event.
Could the State Department be worried about ICE agents being investigated or persecuted, even prosecuted, rather?
Well, see, if they're really worried about that, then that shows that they've kind of lost touch with how this court works and how international criminal law works and what is reality. And that may be a result of the fact that the United States has disengaged from international relationships, has pulled back its contacts, has pulled back from institutions. And so there aren't people who are speaking to ICC personnel, to people in this world who might who would have an understanding of what's real and what's not real. What are the real risks? What are the real threats? What aren't? And so it may be that part of the reason that they have focused on these invented and fantastical risks to the United States, ICE border agents and ICE agents, is because they have withdrawn and isolated themselves from the rest of the world.
The court obviously has relevance for real cases and real people around the world. I mean, how important is it for, say, protesters in Venezuela right now, or the people of Ukraine?
Yeah, that is one of that's a really good question and a really good point, because the court has the court has faced challenges. It has struggled. It has not succeeded in the way that many people hoped it would. It has had a relatively few cases. Some of those cases have failed, and part of the reason for that is its dependence on state cooperation. But the court remains an important symbol, not just as a building, but also because it has judges and it has actual cases. It's a place of hope for victims of mass international crimes, whether they be in wherever they are in the world, wherever they occur. And so that's why I think that the world is not going to dismantle the International Criminal Court. The court is here to stay. It's part of the international system. It is going to have to weather this storm, and it will weather this storm. It will get through this.
Will it also have to change? I mean, you've called it an imperfect institution. You've worked there yourself. Are there a few pointers you could give the ICC tonight to improve?
Yes, it absolutely will have to improve. It will have to become more efficient. It will have to succeed better, do better work. It has succeeded at its cases. It will have to be more realistic about some of the cases that it can do and can't do. I think the court, in some instances, has perhaps spread itself too thin and has brought cases where it's not where there are victims, but maybe not likely to succeed. So it perhaps has to be more strategic. Mm-hmm. But the court, this is an international court that is only 24 years old. And in the creation of a judicial system or a criminal law system, that's a blink of an eye. It's going to take years and years to perfect this court and make it work better and function. And it will just have to get through those years, get through these difficult challenges, and learn and grow and become stronger. But that will take generations.
Yeah, well,
this is a project.
First of all, to get
for
through the Trump
future.
Presidency. It is.
Right. For now, we have to get through the Trump presidency. That's right. And then continue to build and strengthen the court.
And possibly future Trump-like administrations. But before I let you go, Alex, I just want to throw this one last quote at you. In January, Trump was asked by New York Times reporters if there were any checks on his power on the world stage. He replied, "My own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop me. I don't need international law." What's that say to you, Alex?
Well, that's I think a grave miscalculation, because I think the United States is obviously a superpower, and that's why Trump thinks that he doesn't need international law. But the United States cannot succeed in the world alone. It requires cooperation from its allies, and that can only be achieved through international institutions and international law. And the problems that the world faces now, whether they're climate or war or energy, those are all those are global problems that will have to be solved with global solutions. And underpinning that will have to be international law. So it's bad for the world, but bad for the United States that the Trump administration is turning its back on international law and on international institutions.
Lawyer Alex Whiting, sorry to let you go. It's been great talking to you.
Thanks so much for having me.
What's your opinion on the International Criminal Court? Should it stay or should it go? Let us know. I'm Ben Fajzullin. See you again soon.